the first season of Hazbin Hotel is done, and after viewing all 8 episodes, I want to address the biggest and most consistent criticism of the show. There's a large amount of people that believe that the show was rushed, the pacing is too fast, we're introduced to a lot of people with a little bit of depth in between, and surely the answer all along was to make the episodes longer or add more to season 1. And to anyone who believes this, you're missing the forest for the trees. There's an easier solution, which involves probably the most liked character of the bunch so far, and a very hard choice to make as a creator. The story of Hazbin Hotel is about redemption, so each of the main characters should have something compelling to say about it, and this is mostly true. On one side, you have Charlie, who believes that her people are just as worthy as the people in heaven if they have a second chance, and then on the other side, you have Adam, who believes that he, alongside heaven, should never even entertain the thought of redeeming sinners who had their chance. And with the most extreme sides planted in this story, everyone else should help bring these points to their most entertaining highlights. And that's kind of what happens. We have Angel Dust, who serves as a sinner who reforms himself because of the hotel believing in him, showing that while chained to his regrets, he can still redeem himself. That's where Valentino, Husk, and to a lesser extent Cherry Bomb justify their spot in the show. They all support Angel Dust, who supports Charlie. You also have Vagatha, who believes that good people can do bad things but still believe to be good, as she'd pay a heavy price for going against the supposed good side. This connects her to Charlie because of the reveal of her being an exorcist angel, but also Adam, her former superior, and Lutz, who turns out to be quite the important character, and also probably behind her disfigurement.
Simple filth like you has no place in heaven.
There's Sarah, who serves as the head seraphim of heaven, the figurehead of what it's supposed to represent, but she holds secrets of her own, which justifies her position with Adam, given their contrasts of how they carry each other. You see a nice web form here, but I am missing some people. So let's rip off the band-aid. For what we get between the rivalry of Alastor and Vox, does that really come into play this season? If you never saw him, will there be this big, unfixable gap? Of course not. The only V that really matters in this story is Valentino, given his intense back and forth with Angel Dust. It's the catalyst for why Angel Dust acts the way he does, feeding into the theme of redemption, while also giving his story the emotional depth to get attached to it, thus wanting to see him to change, and Valentino is a direct benefactor of the way that heaven works. Velvet's only contribution was delivering the severed head of an angel to Carmilla to force her to react. However, the story doesn't show me how this couldn't have been any other character to do this. But Vox, love his design, love his voice. I even like the representation of television versus radio, but he was not necessary in this first season to garner so much screen time in the second and last episode. With how secretive Alastor is, we don't even get that much screen time to explain why he's a radio demon or why Vox despises him that much. In fact, Mimsy of all people explains his backstory.
He appeared in hell suddenly, making a splash quicker than anyone had ever seen. At first, people wanted to dismiss him, but soon overlords started going missing. And not small ones neither. We're talking heavy hitters.
Could Husk have not done that? At least with him, there's a dynamic with him and Alastor that I'm waiting to be explored, given that Husk used to be an overlord. His payoff this season is that he serves as the muscle against the extermination, even though he ultimately loses that effort. And I'm aware that people love Alastor. He's a fun character. I enjoy his mannerisms, I love his voice, the way that he carries himself, I love it all. I enjoyed his dynamic with Charlie, especially within that 7th episode. It finally gave us something to work with that wasn't completely shrouded in mystery.
I don't know how you can enjoy all the suffering so much.
Just because you see a smile, don't think you know what's going on underneath. A smile is a valuable tool, my dear. It inspires your friends, keeps your enemies guessing, and ensures that no matter what comes your way, you're the one in control.
I also love Nifty and Serpentius. Serpentius is my favorite character, and I don't mind the V's at all, but if you have 8 episodes and that can't budge, you can't extend the time, you can't extend the episode count, then I believe that the next best thing was to remove what wasn't completely necessary, to give time to the things things that would have mattered a lot more. And when you break it down, compared to everyone else in that show, Alastor is the first to go. He is the person that if you remove him and everyone that's connected to him, you can still tell largely the same story, with some changes of course. And you're probably saying, but Jay, the reason why it's rushed is because by episode 5, we're already 5 months ahead. And yes, that is true, and it doesn't help the show at all. If that happened with less characters crammed into those 8 episodes, I doubt that would have been as big of a deal. And to prove it, not only am I going to fix any holes of Alastor's absence, but also show what that time could have been used for, and feel free to rip any of this apart in the comment section. Husk is only at the hotel because Alastor forced him to be there, and the easy way around this is, don't change it. Yeah, don't change it at all. Don't show Alastor, but explain this aspect. Have Husk explain who he is and how he's chained to him, maybe even around angel dust. Who protects the hotel? Simple, Lucifer. But don't show him. Just have his name alone attached to this hotel instill so much fear that most people won't even try anything, even in his absence. This is the Princess of Hell after all, and if no one really cares about that, let's fix that. Vox persuaded Valentino to not come through guns a-blazing to the Hazbin hotel, so naturally he wouldn't push so hard for something that isn't defined in the contract if he knows that the consequence for this is potentially facing Lucifer. Who is the person who finds out angels can be killed and delivers that news to Charlie? Honestly, you can go crazy with anybody here. Personally, I think it would be fun if during a night out with Angel Dust and Husk, they find a severed body and head. You can try out a lot of different scenarios. Given that Velvet found the head of the angel without explaining how she found it, you can let your imagination run wild here. Who introduces Charlie to Rosie? Well, Husk was a former overlord, have him pull some strings. Or if you want to get really spicy, have Vagatha confront Carmilla, and then Carmilla link her to Rosie. They're all overlords. Who protects the hotel in the grand battle of the extermination? Honestly, have them fight a losing battle.
Surprise, bitch!
Charlie organized these murderous beings on short notice, and the rest are not that equipped to take on angels who supposedly have been training for this a lot longer, so have them struggle more. It would give Lucifer's return more of an impact when he does show up. This isn't to say that these are all of the fixes, or even that these are the best fixes, or even that by fixing it, people wouldn't still have problems with the show, but it is to explain that you can write a story with as little Alastor as you need to free up space to what matters more. And what matters more is we need more time in heaven, given that we don't know too much about it. We learn in the 6th episode that the people of heaven don't even really know what it takes to get into heaven. That's a big deal. We also don't really know why Sarah allowed for Charlie to have this meeting knowing that Charlie could spill the beans about the extermination, something that Sarah is trying to keep under the wraps. Granted, Adam did it for her, but if Sarah wanted to keep this secret to protect her people, why bring someone who has no incentive to hide this from the rest of heaven? Also, as much as I love Emily, I really do, she's again one of my favorite characters in this season. If we had more time with her, that would have been great, because as it stands, I imagine her payoff is in the 2nd season, so she isn't that needed here either. You can also give this time to Lucifer, because as much as I love his character design, I love his voice acting, which kind of carries his personality, and him coming in at the end of the season was super cool. It doesn't fit what we knew about him. The 5th episode gets a lot of praise. You know, you have the great song, the interesting dynamic with Alastor, but the beginning of that episode painted him out to be a lot more distant than he appeared.
Maybe it's time
No,
to ask
don't say it!
your dad.
What's the holdup? You got daddy issues?
No, we just have never been close. After he and Mom split, he never really wanted to see me. He calls sometimes, but only if he's bored or like needs me to do something.
Daddy issues.
They play up Charlie's daddy issues, but within the 1st episode of this season, she was more than happy to answer his call, and he was more than happy to give her a chance to speak to Adam. Wouldn't someone who's resistant to call him and ask him for help be less enthusiastic to answer his call 6 months earlier? Clearly, if she's the Princess of Hell, that should hold some more water, but in many episodes, we saw why it did not. This is also going to sound counterintuitive, but also use that time to develop the dynamic between Charlie and Vagatha a lot more, because on the surface, I understand how me saying that it sounds like surface level fan service, but hear me out. We hear how they're together more than we see why they are together, especially because of how they met. They call each other partners, but Charlie and Vagatha don't get that much time together to seal that deal. While in the 6th episode, while in heaven she gives the stink eye to Emily because she's holding hands with Charlie, Vagatha acts more like Charlie's assistant so much, you forget that they're romantically involved. If you include more of these moments, it would have given Vagatha's reveal more weight, because now we know that Charlie views this as a betrayal of her trust. Imagine how much more of that would sting if we saw more cute moments of them together. But most importantly, I would have loved to see more of Vagatha's life as an exorcist angel. We see a few scenes and that's supposed to hold the weight of the 7th episode, but I don't feel it that much, especially when Charlie forgives Vaggie very shortly after from our perspective. Wouldn't it have had a greater impact if we saw how ruthless Vagatha was, and how maybe she even killed someone who's important later on in season 2, or maybe Lute wasn't that good as Vagatha in her prime and that's what motivated her to train so hard, and that leads into the fight that we see in the last episode, or maybe Lute was secretly jealous of her because she always wanted to be second in command to Adam.
Do it then. Correct your mistake.
Seriously, you're pathetic, you know that? Ready to die rather than accepting mercy? No. Live. Live knowing that you only do because I let you. A failure.
For as much time as we see Lute, we don't really learn that much about her besides the fact that she took out Vaggie's eye. And I do want to say again, I don't want Alastor gone because I hate him. I don't hate any character in this show so far, but if Vivzie was saddled with 8 episodes, this alternative does not sound bad to me. It is a tough decision to make as a creator, and I understand why she wouldn't go that route, but with all that said, while I do come with a lot of criticisms, I do find the show to be moderately overhated. I did find a lot that I enjoyed in the show, and I do think a lot of the animosity is probably more rooted in the creator or the fan base, which is beyond the scope of this video, but you can learn more about that in this video about the toughest part of liking Hazbin Hotel.